Hey guys, this is Brad from Argali. Welcome to my garage. This is like a much less cool version of MTB Cribs. But this is where I do all of my wrench work on my guns. And today we're going to be talking about how to mount a scope to your rifle. And I haven't done a ton of rifle scopes, but I have done a few, and I've done a lot of homework. And I feel like one of the things that you often see is when you're trying to find a video on how to mount a rifle scope, the folks doing it often skip over a lot of very basic things, and it creates confusion. There's also a lot of different ways to mount a rifle scope. So I want this rifle scope video, when you get done watching it, no matter if you're really experienced or very unexperienced, you will be able to, with confidence, mount your scope to your rifle. So let's get started. All right, before we get started, let's talk about what you're gonna need to mount your rifle scope to your gun. So first of all, this is a gun that I am setting up for backcountry mule deer hunting. So this is a lightweight rifle setup. So I have a Kimber Montana chambered in a 270 super lightweight rifle, my go-to rifle for lightweight adventures. I'm using a Vortex Razor LHHD and a 3-15 power scope, a great lightweight piece of glass. And then I have, today we're gonna be using some Tally lightweight mounts, rings and base combo set up here. You can certainly use a rail, a Picatinny rail if you want, and it would be the same process. But we're using rings today. You need some sort of leveling kit. So this is a Wheeler Professional leveling kit. I've used a handful of different leveling kits. I like this one a lot because it's just universal. I can use it on any gun with any receiver and pretty much any scope. So I like this setup. Then importantly, you need a torque wrench. Either buy one, borrow one, or don't mount your own rifle scope. I can't overstate that enough. It's really important to make sure that you're torquing the screws at exactly the manufacturer's specifications, or you can and likely will damage your rifle scope. So figure out how to get a torque wrench. You also need some way to stabilize your rifle. So I have a gun vise here that I borrowed from a friend. You don't have to use a gun vise. You can use a set of bipods with some sandbags. The main point is you just need to stabilize your rifle in some way, and you want to make sure that your barrel is just roughly level to the ground. And then I'm also using, this is my makeshift table here, 2 Orion coolers stacked on top of each other. It actually makes for a really nice setup. So let's go ahead and get started. I would say also, just for safety purposes, and my lawyer would want me to say this, make sure your rifle is unloaded and safe before you get going, okay? So our bolt is out. I've checked, there is no bullet in the action here, okay? So first thing you want to do is put the bases on the rifle. Now I like to, because this is, I'm not going to be taking these bases off, and I'm going to have this out in the elements, I like to just coat the metal where the base is going to go with just a real light coating of oil. This is an oil rag that I use to wipe down my rifles, and I like to just put a light coating of oil both on that, on their gun, and then on the bases themselves before I screw them in. Probably unnecessary, but I just don't like corrosion on my rifles. Now, Tally recommends 25 inch-pounds for these bases. So I'm gonna go ahead and start screwing these in. You wanna get both your screws in before you start torquing them down, okay? Okay, almost done. Okay, so next step is we are going to mount our barrel clamp level, okay? Now we're not actually going to be leveling anything at this point in time. All you're doing is mounting your barrel level. And then we are going to index this level here in just a minute. So all you're doing is securing the base. You want to get it roughly level. So get that bubble in the middle there. assuming your bases are roughly level. Okay. Now the whole point of this is we're indexing this level to this plane right here on the bottom half of our bases. Now if you're using a Picatinny rail and we had a rail mounted here, you would just set this level on your rail. The key here is you want to make sure it's perpendicular to the action, okay? So you want that level perfectly perpendicular as you start moving it around. So I'm using one of my bases here. I got it perfectly perpendicular, and now I'm going to move the gun until I get that bubble right in the middle. Doesn't take much movement. Okay, so now I'm in the middle there. I can see I need to adjust my barrel clamp level just a little bit to get it a little bit over. There we go. And that's okay if you need to reset it. The point is, once you start adjusting it though to level your gun, you don't want to take it off or adjust it at all, okay? So you can set it. Okay, so now my bubble is perfectly in the middle here, so this is my reference level, okay? So I'm going to match this bubble, this level, to this level, okay? So I'm perfectly in the middle there. I'm going to adjust that just a hair. And now we are good. Okay, so now my barrel level is indexed to the plane of my rings here, okay? So now I can take my reference level off. I'll use that on top of my scope here in a little bit. But now this is set. So don't bump this level once you get it set. We're good to go there, okay? Next, we're going to put our scope in our rings here, okay? Make sure they slide nice and smoothly here. Kind of look at them. So now I am going to put our top rings on. And all I'm going to do is put these rings on and get them snug enough so I can still move the scope back and forth and side to side, because we're going to need to set our eye relief, and we're also going to need to level the scope still. The other important thing is you want to make sure that the relief between the top ring and the bottom ring, and both the top and the back, is equal side to side. So you don't want your one ring to be like this or canted one way or the other. You want it to be roughly equal. So keep that in mind as you put these rings down. Now I will tell you too something really important, which is that you'll notice I didn't put any Loctite on my top screws or my bottom screws. And that's not by accident. Loctite, a lot of guys use it. The problem with Loctite is it can wet your thread. So when you go to use a torque wrench and you've got Loctite on there and you've got your torque wrench set at, let's say, 15 inch-pounds, you can actually, by the time that it'll wet those threads, so the time your torque wrench actually turns over, you could be much higher than what it's set at. So you could actually be torquing your screws down at 20, 25 inch-pounds, and that will damage your scope. You do not want to do that. And I really don't think you need it, right? These screws and these rings are manufactured, so you do not need to use Loctite, okay? So if there's one thing you take away from this video, don't use Loctite, particularly on the top of your screws that are going over your scope. You can use Loctite on the screws going into your receiver. I didn't, again, because I just don't think you need it. Okay, now what I like to do at this point in time is actually take my rifle out of where it's sitting and set the eye relief. So because my barrel level is indexed to my scope, I can do that. And then when I put it back in, all I need to do is make sure this level is perfect and we're good to go, okay? So, I'm going to take it out. You're gonna put your cheek up to your rifle as if you were shooting it, and you want to close your eyes and open them, and then you want to move it back and forth a little bit. And you'll see that scope shadow. If you ever look through a gun and you see that black ring kind of on the bottom, the top or the bottom of the side, that's there to help you figure out how far you want to set your relief. And this is going to be different for everybody. So set it so that relief is perfect for you. That's right there actually. Perfect. Okay. So now we have our distance. Now we're going to level the scope. So now I'm going to reset my barrel level, okay? I'm just going to set it in there, get it nice and perfect, okay? Now it's nice and perfect. Now I'm going to use this to just this is a little Allen wrench key, to just tighten down the screws. You want to use your reference level again, set it on your turret cap, which is fine to do there, and then you want to start setting. So now what you want to do is match this level to that level by rotating your scope back and forth, okay? So I'm real close here. And then if I didn't say it already, make sure this is perfectly perpendicular, okay? And, ooh, that looks good. Okay, so now as you tighten your screws down though, this is going to adjust a little bit. So I'm going to start tightening these down in a star pattern, like you do when you're you're tightening the lug nuts on a car tire. Okay. Remember, don't over torque them. So now, Vortex recommends a range of 15 to 18 inch-pounds on their scopes. I'm going to go to 17 inch-pounds. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and say this one more time because it's really important. Do not over tighten your screws. Don't be a hero, okay? Even if you think, I'll just do one more inch-pound than I should, there's a reason they recommend that range, okay? Anywhere in that range is fine. But I am going to do 17. That way if my torque wrench is a little off, which I don't think it is, that way I'm still going to be fine. Okay, so now my screws are pretty tight. I haven't torqued any of them down all the way. You want to check your reference level again. At this point in time, my two bubbles are perfectly aligned. So I'm just doing little tiny movements, okay? So now I am going to go ahead and torque them down. Okay, let's set that back up there. I moved my gun a little bit here. So I'm going to set that right in the middle. It is still perfectly indexed. My screws are tight, so that means now the scope is level to our index bubble. So now you take this level off and we are done here. There's still one more step that you want to do. And I'm going to talk about it here in just a second. Let me take my bubble level off. Okay, so now our scope is properly mounted, and before we go to the range and bore sight this and sight it in, what you want to do is, most scopes, this one in particular, has an optical adjustment here with a locking ring. So if you look at this ring in the back here, you can see it. Loosen that ring all the way up. Okay, and then you can twist your scope to adjust for your eye focus. And everybody's eye is different, right? So what you want to do is put the gun up to your eye, look through your scope, or close your eye, excuse me, and then open your eye. And if the reticle is blurry at all, right when you open your eye, adjust the scope in and see if it gets better, and keep going in. And then if it doesn't get better, try going out and just play around with it. And what you want to do is make sure it's in focus right when you open your eye, okay? And this is easier to do if you have somebody to help you out. But your eye will quickly begin to adjust for that out of focus picture. So you want to make sure it's crisp and clear the minute or the second you open your eye. Okay guys, that is all you need to do to know how to mount your own rifle scope. I hope you found this useful. For more information on gear, tips, and tactics about backcountry hunting, be sure to visit ourgallioutdoors.com.